Yeehaw!
Hello and welcome, Star Wars fans, to this week's episode of Duel of the Ranks, a show where we debate takes so hot they'd melt a planet with twin suns. My name's Brian, and I'm joined by my co-host Amanda to debate where this week's episodes rank amongst all Star Wars content. And this week we're discussing the Bad Batch Season 3 episodes 8 and 9, titled Bad Territory and the Harbinger. We did have an off week last week, Amanda, so we could get some things in motion, start catching up with actually releasing the episodes on Spotify and all that stuff. So we have 2 episodes to catch up with this week, which makes it extra fun, more to talk about. So Amanda, why don't you start us off with a little synopsis of where these episodes are going?
Yeah, let's start off with episode 8, Bad Territory. So B contacts the Bad Batch, reporting that bounty hunters have been retrieving M-count targets for the Empire. In response, Hunter and Wrecker travel to a distant planet to find Fennec Shand, hoping that she'll have the information they seek. She agrees to help, but on the condition that they secure her own elusive target, Sylar Cyrus. On the planet Velo, the 3 of them track down Cyrus, an insectoid bounty hunter, through a swamp-like terrain. Back on Pabu, Omega tries to help Crosshair fix his shaky hand by looking inward and practicing meditation.
She sure does. That episode was I saw everyone just calling it filler instantly. Like, that was like my first reaction. And we got to have like an in-depth conversation about that word, actually, because
we always do. It's such a, dare I say, trigger word.
It really
like,
is.
We've talked about it plenty of times in past Duel of the Rings episodes that, you know, if you have a burger that's just a burger patty and a bun, that's kind of a boring burger. Filler is needed to add to the experience, right?
Some freshness, some layers in there, a little bit of crunch.
There's good filler and there's bad filler, I guess. Maybe the bad filler is too much like Juvederm in your like face, you know. Juvederm, yeah. It's like it's the like filler in your face that makes you supposedly stay young.
Oh yeah, I've heard people talking about that in my car today. Actually, people were talking about filler, getting filler in the face. I was like, what are you talking about? That?
So yeah, 2 different types of filler: good filler, bad filler.
That's bad. Yes, it's yeah, no, absolutely. It can be done in a fun way and it can be done in a not fun way, and I think that's really what it comes down to. Is like, if people enjoy the episode, then it's not filler. So I think the vibe I got from this episode was that it was just kind of boring, and people just weren't as into it.
I did have to give this. Our job is to critique these episodes and give them a fair ranking, and it doesn't always have to be how I personally like emotionally feel about it, but I also want to like critique it. And this one did have a little bit lower of a score than some of the other ones that we've reviewed recently. And it was kind of for the same reason, that the story, it was just sort of like, hey, we need this information. Let's go find this information. And they still didn't get any information by the end of it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, wait, and maybe I'll tell you the information later.
Right. I don't have it on me. What are you talking about?
Yeah, and I'm going to go turn in this bounty and then I'll get back to you.
Right, yeah. We're going to have our...
So it was a little bit like by the end of the episode, okay, Crosshair's hand isn't fixed, right? Like, that we know of, I guess. It didn't seem like that, but he does find a way to like calm himself and meditate, which was a really touching scene, specifically when he's like sitting there with Omega and his hand's kind of shaking and she like opens up his hand and like that was just, I don't know, it just made me really emotional. And I also want to see like a lo-fi chill with that background on for like 5 hours, and it's just me meditating with Omega and Crosshair and Batcher.
I love that. No, that's perfect. I love that they're just like kind of sprinkling in these little messages about mental health for kids and things like that, and things you can do like meditation, and how even for a guy like Crosshair who's been around and had experience, he still has, you know, his own insecurities, his own anxiety that he's got to work through himself, and you have to address the spider within. Just
Mm-hmm.
like that. They also released a Spider-Verse short that was just about kind of the same thing, about
Oh.
dealing with anxiety and things like that. So that was pretty cool, but also just the that connection with Omega and Crosshair continues to get better, and that was for me, like, funny enough, the highlight of the episode too. It had nothing to do with the actual, like, plot, the alligators, the the boats, Fennec Shand. We haven't even barely touched on Fennec Shand.
I know,
I,
which is
I
surprising. I do want to say I
yeah.
think Fennec is also like a highlight of this episode for me. She has
Mm-hmm,
so much power. She just like exudes like confidence,
mm-hmm.
and she knows herself and her worth.
Right.
And I love that. I love how quickly we found her. It was like, oh, we need to go find Fennec. There she is. She's right there with her mask off. Like
Mm-hmm.
we found her. And I'm glad that that wasn't like 80% of the episode.
No, it was very Mandoverse. It definitely felt like an episode of The Mandalorian in a way, of just like, oh, we find this guy, we get this bounty, we go do the thing, and then we'll get the information we need. But then
Good
you
point.
don't even get the information you do need. I mean, it fits for this episode because Fennec is a Mandalorian character.
True.
I always forget that, like, yeah, she was like super intimidating that first episode of The Mandalorian when they're
Oh,
like
yeah.
sneaking up on her from like all these different vantage points, the dunes and the sniping and stuff. Like, that was some intense, like, different kind of action that we've had in Star Wars. And I'm not gonna lie, I kind of was like having snooze fest 2024 up in this episode with Fennec. I love that she's badass. She's cool. She knows what she's doing. She's obviously like
Hmm.
tough enough to keep up with any of the other scum and villainy in the galaxy. But and there is a place for subtle performance. I just
Yeah.
don't think cartoons is that.
Mm.
And I think the Bad Batch might be just a kind of good example of how you can take a cool, calm, collected character like Fennec, and the entire episode can just be completely boring.
Did you feel that way when she was in earlier seasons of The Bad Batch, or did you feel like she had more of arc in that earlier season?
Yeah, I think her motives were a little bit more interesting at that point too, because now it's just like in season one, when it's the first season, right? When
Yeah.
she actually captures her and does all that stuff with Cad Bane. There's all that Camino stuff. That's right. Okay, yeah, I'm just kind
Hmm.
of backtracking my way through it. Honestly, like, I wasn't there for Fennec. Fennec isn't anything I remembered about that episode. I think Fennec's a cool character. I love her design, and I love Ming Na Wen and the other things I've seen her in. I just think that, like, sometimes voice acting doesn't really translate to live action, and vice versa. Like, you need expressiveness, and you need to be big, and I don't know. You need to be able to match the beauty of the animation that's on screen, right?
Yeah, I hear that. I hear exactly what you're saying, but I kind of have the opposite opinion where I
Okay.
felt that yes, she sounds different than all of the other voice actors
Mhm.
because she kind of has more, I don't know if I want to say like a more balanced character or
Mhm.
I don't know if that's the right word, but yeah, her tone was a lot more kind of like the everyman, like
Mhm.
kind of calling it as it is. And I love Ming-Na Wen's voice,
Mhm.
and I felt that it was like very cutting, but also kind of cocky.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it was much more subtle and pulled down than I think
Mhm.
a lot of the other voice actions that we
Right.
get.
Even with just Hunter and Wrecker interacting with her pretty much the entire episode, right?
Yeah, especially with them. And I also think that if she would have tried to overdo it or match them in that way, it would have felt
Mhm.
also kind of off.
Yeah. No, I get that. There's probably not a way to make that episode or that character like super interesting, high stakes, energetic. But
Yeah.
I will appreciate what we did get out of it, which was some freaking alligator fighting. I love
Yeah. We
Wrecker
were in
just
down
like
in the bayou.
doing some WWE moves on those guys. Yeah,
What did you
like
think
seeing
of
Wrecker
them?
being Wrecker.
What did you think of the swamp like Everglades location?
Being from near Louisiana, like, I thought it was great representation for our ecosystem in the the Gulf of Mexico, the greater Houston area. I guess is exactly like that. Anywhere where there's swamp and humidity, it is exactly that yellow and gross at
Uh,
twilight, and
okay.
it is exactly that swampy. And no, it's crazy. I grew up like 4 hours from that episode of Star Wars: The Bad Batch. So I do appreciate alligators. I have been on a lot of campouts around the Houston area where there's been hella alligators around, and I'm just a big fan. So they were the highlight to me. Other than the actual bounty that they got, I don't remember. I did not remember his name. You said it was
It is.
it was something awesome, like
It is awesome. It was Siler Cyrus.
Siler Cyrus. What?
I know, an insectoid bounty hunter, which is also kind of the
Yeah.
first time that we've seen, or that I've seen, like
Yeah.
an insectoid, like sentient
Well,
being.
actually, this was something I wrote down. I wanted to see if you and Brody, if Brody was here on the episode, rest in peace. I
He's still
wanted to
alive,
see if
but he's
y'all
just not here.
knew the first canon first canon appearance of that species. This is not the first time we've seen that exact species that looks like a mantis.
Can you give me a hint?
Um,
And maybe like the type of media, if it's like video
it's a
game.
movie. It's a movie.
Oh, it's a movie.
One of the 9 Skywalker saga
Okay.
films.
My guess would be Phantom Menace.
Nope. A
Really?
New Hope, 1977.
Really?
This species has been canon as long as Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker and Leia and Vader.
Wow.
So there you go. It's in the cantina. Yeah. I feel like I actually posed this exact question to y'all a couple months ago about some other completely random species, and the answer was also 1977.
They just crammed in as
Cantina.
many weird things and just were
Yeah.
like, you know, whenever we need a new character, we'll just go to that scene and like pluck someone out.
The cantina scene has just so much design to draw from. Really, it is.
That is cool.
like,
Yeah, because he's
packed
like
with that.
sitting on the bar, right? And he like takes a drink or something. Am I remembering that
I
correctly?
think he's more in the background.
Oh, okay.
He's very subtle. He's definitely not not even as like noticeable as Wolfman, who was removed in the special
Yeah.
editions. Not even as noticeable as that.
I wonder
He's,
if we'll
like,
ever
super
get
background.
Wolfman back then.
We did. We have gotten several of Wolfman's species back in Star Wars
Really?
actually since then. I couldn't tell you off the top of my tongue where they are or who they are or what they do,
That's
but
cool.
yeah, we've
That's really
definitely had Wolfman come back. Yeah. So even though he was eviscerated from canon for what, a decade or so? I don't know. It was a while when the special editions came out before they started making, content again.
I did also want to talk about Hunter and Wrecker this episode because Fennec calls them out and she's like, well, you're the demolitions expert and you're the tracker. And I was like, are they? Is that what their specialty has been this whole time? Because you would have had me fooled. When was the last time you saw Wrecker like blow something up? Like, I know he's like talked about wanting to blow things up, but I feel like you don't really see him technically like set bombs, or he's not sort of like the demo guy. He's just sort of
loves a
the
good
dumb
explosion.
muscle. He does love a good explosion, but that could be
He
just
appreciates it.
a dumb muscle, you know? And
He's
then
a connoisseur.
and yes, like, yeah, we know Hunter is a tracker, but like, really, he hasn't done much about, like, he's no
Oh, that's for sure.
Aragorn.
No.
Let's be real.
No, and this episode would be the perfect episode to showcase that.
And
right?
all he did was like see some bombs in the water, and that was it. Like, that was all he did.
He reacted to the Mantis guy, Sylan Snidus.
Yes.
Sylar Snoodles, yeah, hiding in the corner of the hut. I think Hunter did sense it and feel it, and like
They don't. Then the
But it's
show
not a
doesn't do a
big
good
moment.
job at like displaying his
No,
senses in that way.
not
You would
at
think
all.
that you
It's the
could
closest
like
we've gotten all season.
right. You think you could get like a close-up shot of him and like his spidey senses or something, and or like seeing like I don't know. I think of what is it, Red Dead Redemption? How you can kind of like follow along like a track and see like where their pheromones led or something. You
Oh.
know,
That would be cool.
that would be way more interesting. But otherwise, he just feels like
He's just
I
kind of
don't know.
there. Yeah, he's just kind of the
there.
soldier. Just the regular. He's the DPS.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
He's not just there. He is the leader, and he is like a super cool guy. But like, yeah, I think there absolutely is still room for him to show what he's all about, and to use those skills that he has used here and there, like in a cool, unique way. Like, you gotta really lean into how these characters are different from each other at this point in the show, right? because otherwise, like, the characters that are there are just kind of there for obligatory reasons, and that's kind of how the next episode felt to me as well. I don't know if you had any last moments you
Well,
wanted to wrap up about this one.
I did also want to mention that I liked that that Fennec mentions that the air on Velo is toxic and will kill
Mm.
them. And I was kind of disappointed that that didn't end up like coming into play. It felt like a
Oh,
very
right.
foreboding. But then it also got me thinking about, I don't think this is quite a hot take, but it's something that I want to gripe about. But there's just too many planets that have environments and ecosystems that are too accommodating to the human
Mm.
lung, you know, if
Right.
you think
Yeah.
about it. Like, why don't some of them have like acid air or like other like
Fire air.
lightning all the time, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like something really crazy. Like everything, like, yeah, there's a lot of species that will target you, but I want some more creative diversity in the biomes that they
And the
give us.
biomes.
The
Yeah. No,
biomes.
I think that's been a major distinction between the Bad Batch and the live action shows is that the biomes are much more diverse and interesting and alien
That's
feeling.
what that's
But if
why I
it
like
played into the
animation so
story,
much.
yeah, exactly. One of the many reasons I prefer animation. Prefer animation. I must say it. Prefer animation. Star Wars should have been an animation from the beginning, and that's why we have Mobile Suit Gundam. I'll get into that tangent another time. It is the Star Wars anime. It's so good. But with this episode in particular, like, yeah, you're right. There was a stake to it. There was a point of like, this planet
You
is
can't take your
sketchy.
helmet off.
Right, like we're in bad territory here. Is the title of the episode. But like, if there had been any situation throughout the episode where one of them gets their helmet accidentally knocked off, it would have made the episode like 10 times better because then
Right.
there's like this connection, this reason for them to be there.
And the
These
stakes are
stakes.
higher.
They could die. Either one of them could absolutely die at this point in the season. I mean, I wouldn't have believed it without a goodbye, but
Right.
like, which we'll get into with Phi in the next episode. But but for this episode, like, I do love the Louisiana environment. I do love, pontoon boats and alligators and a lot of things about this episode. But really, like, there's just some little tweaks like that. Any little beat to make it somewhat more interesting, I think, would have saved this episode from becoming completely forgotten, which it will be in like a year.
It will, yeah. I do want to say right before we wrap up this episode that Omega had my favorite line at the very beginning when Crosshair was asking who Fee is, and Omega's like, she's a liberator of ancient wonders, and Crosshair's just like, huh? And she's like, she's a pirate.
She's a
Okay, she's a
pirate.
pirate. And I was like, I hope that someday I'm a liberator of ancient wonders.
Hey, it's never too late to start.
So with that, I ended up ranking this episode a 67.2.
Wow, yeah, I landed right around there at 64%. Seems like most of our scores, I don't know, are actually pretty different from each other. We both agreed the story was like the weakest part of it.
Yeah.
The characters were the strongest, and the tech aspects, I don't know. I guess I liked them more
I
than
also
you.
comment that the technical aspects,
Too
the
dark.
episode was a little dark at times, and that can be a bummer in some cases, but yeah.
Right. And there were
Overall,
some cool. Yeah, we pretty much unanimous, I guess. We agree with most of the Discord out there, which is like, yeah, not all episodes that don't advance the story very far, not all of them are filler, but I guess, like, if you enjoyed it, or if you're going to forget it within a year, then I guess I would put that in the bucket of filler episodes that we've gotten so far. Right, but yeah, I guess the next episode 9, they're pretty connected. I'm glad we did these two together, even by accident, because they are pretty connected. Yeah, what happens in episode 9, the Harbinger?
Back on Pabu, the Bad Batch is visited by Asajj Ventress on behalf of Fennec Shand. She has come to deliver the intel on M-count research, explaining that it's a measure of one's potential in the Force. On Omega's urging, she begins to test the young clone in ways of the Force, though the rest of the squad does not trust her. By the end of her testing, Ventress tells Omega she doesn't pass her test and therefore does not have a high M count, and she should be lucky for it. Omega accepts this, but the rest of the batch knows she's lying.
Yeah, so we've
So
been
this
looking
this
forward to
is a big
this.
episode.
This is a
Okay.
big one for me and Amanda. We are both huge Ventress fans,
Yes.
and
Wow. I
there's
know.
some.
Okay, there's a lot to discuss because a lot of people are not happy that Ventress is back, which we all knew she was going to be back because she was in the trailer. So people were like, is it going to be a flashback? Is she actually alive? Because
Mhm,
she has died in Dark Disciple,
right.
which I have not read and I do need to read because I've heard it's one of the best ones. And I will
Mhm.
plan on reading it because I love Asajj
Yeah.
Ventress, which
I don't
also
know how
reminds
to
me you should
read, so
read
doesn't matter
audiobooks.
for me. Audiobooks are great.
Yes. But spoiler alert, um, at the end of that book, she does die, and Quinlan Voss, from my understanding, buries her body on Dathomir.
Yes. So the way it
So,
actually ends is Quinlan and Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan's there too
oh, really?
because I think he had a thing for. I think both of them did.
I mean, we saw
Or
in
at least
Clone
she
Wars
had a
when they
thing for him.
battled, and she was like, "I'm going to take off my robe to battle you," and we're like,
You
"No."
absolutely know that they were both just
She's.
drunk as
I mean,
heck
how do you not
one
be
night.
attracted to
I'm
her? I
sure they
mean,
have. I'm like 100% sure that they've gotten together, like just at some bar on some backwater planet in the middle of. Maybe it was before, episode 2. I don't know how old Ventress is. Let's just backtrack here for a second and just say that the Dark Disciple novel ends with Obi-Wan and Quinlan Voss burying her in a lake, which a lake is a
oh,
pretty
okay.
bad place to bury a person, because water.
Because
Bodies are
water.
buoyant because
Yeah.
buoyancy. Um, so that's the official ending, is that the lake accepts her back. I think, and it's
But also, we know that Dathomir is like her home planet of the
yeah.
Night Sisters, and the Night Sisters are not, it's not uncommon for them to resurrect people, as we have seen. And what I liked about this episode is we didn't get a full explanation of, I bet you're wondering where I've been.
Somehow
How did I get here?
Ventress returned. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Well, my mom met my dad, and
And we love each other very much.
yes.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we didn't get like all of the answers revealed throughout this, but her with her like cool bisexual haircut was
Oh
like
yeah.
really into it. Also, she has like
So it
this
is
uniform and she has
the
this,
pauldron thing.
yeah.
She had some
And
of it in season 6 of the Clone Wars when she has her appearance
okay, I
there.
couldn't remember that.
Yeah.
And I was trying to decipher what that symbol was on there.
The little snake, the snake that
Yeah.
goes around it. Yeah. As far as I
A bigger
understand,
Star Wars fan than I would know
oh,
that already.
I don't know if there's. I don't think it's like a specific type of snake. To me, it kind of reminded me of like Anakin's vision of him becoming Vader in the original Clone Wars series. Like that kind of artwork. Like I don't know, like that kind of snake thing that his arm becomes is like
Mm,
this misunderstood monster. I think is what the snake really represents in most cultures. Is that it's like we have this biological instinct to fear it because it looks different, it looks scary, it looks like it's going to hurt us. But not all of them are bad. Some of them are very good for the ecosystem. Like Asajj Ventress. She's very
yeah.
good for my ecosystem, I'll tell you that much. I
Well, she,
loved every line she said. I was just like hooked in
yeah,
this
especially
episode.
when we were just talking about Fennec Shan's voice acting, you get the
Mm,
opposite when Ventress is here. You get so every word that she enunciates is like delivered.
yeah. It's very
And
stark
whoa, she
contrast.
delivered. As far as like we haven't seen her in a long time. I haven't
Mm-mm.
watched the later seasons of the Clone Wars in years, so I don't even remember the last time I saw her.
Oh,
And she is in this sort of balanced state. She does not play either side really, and she makes that very clear at the end when she's like, I
right.
just am here to serve myself.
She
Like,
says that directly, yeah.
yeah.
So that's a good thing for the audience to know, especially seeing that she was on the other side during the Clone Wars. We're not unfamiliar with people switching sides or with separatist leaders becoming kind of more important throughout the Bad Batch or in this age of
Hmm.
early rebellion stirrings. But seeing Ventress was, well, for me, okay, I guess I'll say like I I'm actually a very big defender of Episode 9 and of somehow Palpatine returns because they
Mhm.
literally do explain it the line
Yeah,
after. Dark science, cloning, secrets only the Sith knew. That's all I need to hear to
right. And it
understand
makes
exactly how
sense that
Palpatine came
it
back.
also makes sense that Poe would be like, I don't know,
Yeah, Poe
like
wouldn't get that. No.
why would he know that? Exactly. So it makes
Right.
sense how he delivers the line. Anyway.
So like with Asajj Ventress, like Night Sisters, zombies, secrets only they knew. Like it's kind of the same thing. So like I'm not gonna be a butt and be like, you either gotta hate both of them or love both of them. But like I don't know why I wasn't very into Asajj Ventress's resurrection. The first time I saw the episode, I was just like the whole time just wanting answers instead of being engaged in the
Mm,
actual story playing out. And the second time I saw it, I enjoyed it a lot more, as I always do. But still, I can understand how like that's not satisfying to fans. That like, well, now I kind of like even more so expect Tech to just show up or to be
mm,
this clone trooper, right? Or to be anyone like. I don't know. It was my biggest fear when Disney bought Star Wars was that it was going to become like Thor the Dark World and nothing was going to have any stakes ever because, you know, the bad guy does one ambiguous thing and then suddenly you can't trust which side they're on. That doesn't increase tension to me. That just,
mhm.
it's like, okay, whatever side they pick, it's like they flipped a coin and could have gone with A or B
And
in this
next time it
story.
might be the other choice, you
Yeah,
know?
there's some other universe out there that played out completely different and still nobody cared. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of how I feel about a lot of things. And I need to voice some concern that the Bad Batch could absolutely still suck. Like as a series, like there's still room for it to be like the last 5 episodes are just the same expository plot points and there's like nothing interesting really happens and all the answers that you get are just like more questions to, you know, uninteresting things that you don't
Mhm.
really care about yet. I mean, it's definitely built itself up from being this show that I didn't want at first. I didn't really care about who are these 4 guys that they just
Yeah.
shoehorned into season 7 of the Clone Wars, took away 4 great episodes of something else cool happening, and that like I guess you get Omega, like she's like the actual addition to the group, but uh I don't know. I guess with Fennec and with Ventress, they are, and I've said this several times throughout this season that they're deliberately going out of their way to tie all the animated stuff together, and I think there's still potential for it to be really great, but I don't know. At some points, it feels like nah, this show is kind of losing me almost, or not. I don't know. I'm not totally like bored by it, but a lot of times I'm like, okay, we've been kind of going around the same, circling around the same watering hole for a couple days at this point, and it's like, come on, just get
Yeah,
going.
and it's like the point of this was also to be like, we need to figure out why the Empire wants Omega. And Crosshair even says it, and he's like, why
Mm,
does it matter? Like, we're not going to hand her over or anything. And Hunter's like, well, we have to know in order to know what we're up against. But like,
mm,
even to me as an audience member, that's not even like a compelling reason enough to move forward with it, you know? Like
mm-hmm.
in my mind, I'm like Crosshair. I'm like, it doesn't really matter.
Right. Yeah, and that's the
So I'm
thing is,
Yeah, so like they're gonna have to do something. Like this is now like the second or third episode where we're lingering on what are M counts, like why are they
right,
important? M counts, M counts.
which are officially midichlorians.
They
Thank you.
officially are.
They're officially, they name dropped it. It's a real thing. Okay, so this all is this theorizing. Finally, we can rest assured that
It was crazy because
that's what
I
they're doing.
remember like season 1, episode 1. I'm like, okay, so what makes her special? Is she like force sensitive? Like clearly by the end of season 1, we're gonna have something like a little hint dropped. And even in this episode, I thought for sure because Asajj is testing her in these ways of the force, which the
Mm.
legitimacy of these tests are still questionable. But when even in the instance of when Omega comes and finds Asajj like with Hunter or with Wrecker in the air,
Oh, choking him
Hunter
and yeah.
and like Crosshair down, you would think that Omega would be like, stop, and like have a moment to like channel the force in her or connect
Mm-hmm.
with something and just like make a pebble move to some
Mm.
degree, kind of like a Sabine.
Hmm.
But I I was shocked that we didn't get even like a little taste of still any of that. Like, are
You
we
think so?
really going to prolong the whole thing of her not
No.
having any force ability?
No. Question is answered. No, Omega does not possess any more force sensitivity than anyone else in the galaxy.
Do you
and
accept that answer?
I absolutely accept and love that answer. And I'm totally like that was a question that some fans were saying like that's not even a like Omega force sensitive? Like why are you even that was earlier this season that people were thinking like that was ridiculous to try to push because I was trying to say like with the the science and the episode with Palpatine, I think it's the third episode where
Mhm.
he's like yeah, where he's there and they're breaking out and everything where they're learning a little bit more about these experiments
And she
and what they're
finally
for.
tests her blood and it's like a
Yeah.
match or whatever.
Right, it does a thing, but like
Yeah.
the instinctual thing is to say, "Oh, Omega's force sensitive, she's going to be trained as a Jedi." And then it didn't happen for like 6 episodes where they didn't even address that question
Mhm.
again. And like to me that was my question was like that it sounded like she could absolutely have force potential or that her, or maybe just the wordage, the verbiage, the exact precise way they worded this sentence about her, about the experiment pretty much leaves it ambiguous or, the only way it's relevant to this story is like the cloning experiments in Mount Tantus and Palpatine. And I'm hoping it all comes together um,
So you're
in
thinking
kind of
that
a more
her M
significant
count
way.
status is more so like just some genetic, like she has some type of extra gene or
Mm-hmm.
whatever that just so happens to like mean she has high levels, but it doesn't actually mean she's
Mm-hmm.
force sensitive.
Exactly, and maybe that's their way of justifying the existence of midichlorians at all, or that line
Mm,
in the Phantom Menace, which is that yeah, Anakin had this predisposition to become a powerful Jedi, but he also had to put in the work. He also had to
yeah.
train his butt off. Um, there's a lot of debate about how the Force actually works. How much training do you actually need to use this ability versus this ability? And it's all
Right.
freaking stupid because Star Wars makes no sense. It never really
Yes.
has. I don't think it ever will. So like, let's just enjoy the character relationships, and that's where this show always shines. Is those little moments, like the blue flowers with red thorns. I love that Asajj just sent Omega to go to the top of the mountain
Yeah,
just
just
to
get out of here.
distract. Yeah, she
Blue flower,
totally
red
gave her
thorns. Blue
the
flower, red thorns.
donkey quest from Shrek. Blue flower, red thorns. Oh, I can't.
I'm
I thought that
colorblind.
was so funny that yeah, Ventress just like said, just go away for a little bit. I know your brothers are like itching to shoot me,
Yeah.
so like let's
And
just settle
she
this.
kicked their butt, which
She
was,
sure
we haven't even
did.
talked about that yet. She goes hand to hand combat, and that
So
was
cool.
cool. So cool.
Probably one of the most unique fight scenes in all of Star Wars, and I don't know. I think that they used stop motion for this, like seeing season 7 of the Clone Wars, how Ahsoka and Maul did their fight in stop motion. This fight scene looked like it was translated from stop motion or not stop motion, motion capture. That's what I'm trying
Motion
to say.
capture. Yeah.
Yeah, it gave me motion capture vibes. The frame rate like doubled. Like I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
you can notice. Like
Yeah.
visually, it was just nothing you've ever seen before in Star Wars. The choreography itself. Ooh, I'm getting so excited. I'm stumbling over
Yes.
my words.
And then she
Woo!
almost it looked
Choreography.
like she was gonna like break Crosshair's arm in an arm bar.
She could
And
have.
then I thought she did. I was like, oh my gosh. And then Crosshair's all of a sudden like pew pew. And I was like, whoa, I
Mm-hmm.
guess you have arms of steel.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think she wanted to hurt them. I think she's a very defensive person, like a snake.
Yeah.
Like they will
Yeah.
bite you if they're scared. Like, but that doesn't make them evil. That doesn't make them bad.
Yeah.
Um, so I
That's a good
guess
point.
I guess my frustration with this episode was more that they tiptoed around the dialogue for 20 straight minutes. Name dropped midichlorians like once, and then just like I don't know, it was frustrating because like
Well, then
I
how do
want
you
more.
and how do you interpret the ending then when he was like when they're like, well, we know you're lying about which part?
Mhm.
So do you think that she actually does think she has high M counts and force sensitivity, or what part did you how did you
Mhm.
understand that?
I think the only reason she wouldn't or that she would lie is if she's, in the Empire's pockets, which is absolutely possible. I mean, they freaking find her in the middle of a cave. Like, it's not like she like, it was a really weird setup. Like, that gave me weird vibes at first, and maybe that'll play off in a later episode, but like that they're the ones that are supposed to be looking for her, but then they accidentally find her in a cave. It just sounded rewritten to me. It sounded like that scene was repurposed, and that all the
Mm.
stuff that happened in the cave was supposed to happen somewhere else, or that the intro was supposed to happen somewhere else, and I don't know.
Mm.
It just felt weird to me, and it's not necessarily bad because it still like makes sense. Like, okay, maybe Ventress just like stalked them, and then she landed in the cave, and they just happened to walk by the cave that day, and Batra could smell her. Maybe that's why they suddenly stumble upon Asajj Ventress. Um, but I don't know. I think there's definitely potential for her and Fennec to still be super sketchy and adversaries to the Bad Batch.
Yeah, the ending of last episode with Fennec seemed very ominous. And I also want to talk about how this episode ends extremely ominously as well, which I ended up giving the um, highest ranking to the music for that moment at
Hmm.
the end where like Asajj is taking off and the music's really ominous, and then it
Yeah.
like goes to black and it gets even more like set up, and then you have the credits roll. And
Right.
obviously the title being the Harbinger is like, it's literally saying this is going to forecast what is
Going
like, this
down.
right here is what's to come.
Right.
So it's very heavy handed in that way.
Yeah. And it is like, I kind of see it as the last episode in this second act. There's 15
Yeah.
episodes of the season, and this is episode 9. So the last, I guess I can't do math. There's 6 more episodes left. But we're coming to the point of the turn, right? Where like,
Yeah.
it should be getting super high stakes, super interesting. And I guess where I'm at is that I don't necessarily feel it. I don't think,
Right.
but the
Like
story is
with
no different than I predicted it would be before the season even started.
like there didn't even seem to be any new by the end of this episode, there still isn't a new direction to go.
Right.
You know,
It's an
the bad
advancement. It's a
like
step
okay, we
forward,
now
but
know a little bit more about M counts, but like now what? Like we
right.
aren't armed any differently to prepare for the Empire. We don't have any more resources. Like it hasn't brought
Mhm.
anything yet. So like what is the I mean, I know that next week is a 2-part episode.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's exciting. You know that
Mhm.
those are going to like lead into each other,
It's always something
but
cool.
it's not clear what the next step is. And I think that's kind of frustrating after so many episodes. Kind of
Yeah.
in the middle part has kind of like dipped a little bit.
Several episodes have, feels like. And like I don't think they've I wouldn't say that we don't know where the rest is going. It just feels like every answer we've gotten, every episode is containing a lot of exposition still. They still have to go through the whole, basically telling the entire story of the season, which made me think a little bit about how you have to write episodes differently for releases like Disney Plus versus when you're releasing them Saturday morning cartoons like the Clone
Mm.
Wars. Like how does that affect the writing process? And I think clearly Bad Batch has shown that like it's very distinct from the Clone Wars in that exact approach, and that the episodes can be their own length and they can kind of say their own thing. They don't have to tie in the rest of the story because you're supposed to binge it all. You're supposed to binge a season at a time. It's kind of how it feels like the Bad Batch is written, and that's how
Yeah,
I experience most things. Is
binging
I
right
get
through them.
obsessed with it, yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm just done in a day, and then I never think about it again. So, I don't know how that's affected your experience of it, but I don't know. I definitely feel the same thing with like, yeah, the music was great this episode. I actually really had to. I had to agree with you about the music in this episode being fantastic, especially with little cues here and there that I'm not. I didn't go out of my way to research like, oh, is this from that scene when Asajj
Mm.
Ventress is introduced? But like, I knew it was Asajj Ventress. Like the music that they played with her, I was like, this makes me feel like I felt when seeing the Clone Wars
Hmm.
movie in theaters, like the first time I saw this character on screen, and that was cool. But I hope
Also,
they do more with her this season. Really.
yeah, of course they have to. I also wanted to call out that like sea monster and it's like
Oh
iridescent,
yeah.
like color changing shell. Like that was super cool. I
Hmm.
thought that I love it when Star Wars gives us new species and monsters and things like that. So
I do love monsters. It is feeling a little obligatory at this, and I said this early on in this season that there are so many monsters in this show. Like it's got more monsters per
yeah,
episode than any other Star Wars media.
that's a good point.
And this season probably has more monsters per episode than either of the other two seasons. Actually, I don't know. I would be pretty confident to say season 3 has more monsters than 1 and 2 combined, but I haven't
I
done the
think you're
math.
right.
So someone in the chat do the math for us real quick, because I'm fairly confident in that position. Like, it's another one of those things that, like, it's only because it's already happened so many times that it's feeling like kind of forced, or like they needed some kind of action or tension to happen on Pabu. And so what happened in the first season was just, it was like a hurricane or something. That was
Oh, the
season
tidal wave.
2. The tidal wave. Yeah, there
Which
was
was
some big thing on
interesting
Pabu.
because that was truly like a natural disaster.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Different from
found
a
that,
monster.
yeah, I thought that that was interesting instead of it being like, oh no, the Empire did something to create a tsunami or like,
Mm-hmm.
that falls into what I was critiquing about the last episode about the environments and the biomes and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. There should be more like weather occurrences and stuff that's trying to
Mm.
kill you out of your control more often.
Right. Or at least it affects the conditions of the battle in some way,
Right.
right? That gives everything a little bit more of a stake to it, a little bit more gravity. And I think with this sea monster, like, yeah, as far as monsters go, it's a pretty cool looking little monster. I feel like if you looked at it from the front, it would look so adorable. I don't know if you see
Yeah.
like all the shots, like these big old eyes, and the beak is
Yeah.
like kind of above the
Yeah.
eyes. So I was just picturing like picking it up and like pointing it at me like a little turtle. And I just see his little face there and his little tiny beak, and he's so cute. He's actually such a cute little guy. And he does have that bioluminescent stuff, which is kind of cool. I don't know how much of the green energy that you see with, like, the stingrays that float up. I don't know how
Mhm.
much of that is like, maybe that was Night Sister magic and not the Force that Ventress was actually tapping into there.
Lots of questions.
Lots of questions, and I'm sure we'll get zero answers. We got 6 episodes to wrap up the season, though. I mean, I'm sure we won't get incredibly compelling answers to the sea monster's
As long as Tech
bioluminescence,
stays
but
dead, I'll be
as long
pretty
as
happy.
Tech stays dead, it'll be a great
That's
show.
the one thing that I'm holding out for.
I'm calling it. It's not happening. In fact, the more, like, especially Ventress's appearance in this episode just convinced me, like, oh yeah, no, they don't really care about
They
that rule at
don't
all.
need Tech to be back. Like it doesn't do anything for the story for Tech to be back. That doesn't mean that they won't try to.
Unless he's a bad
Or
guy. If he's a bad guy,
I
then
like
it's
the.
like,
I still
uh-oh.
think that the operative is like a Crosshair clone.
A Crosshair clone. Interesting.
Yeah.
I actually saw the theory today that he's an Echo clone.
Ooh.
The secret spy Jason Bourne clone trooper is actually a clone of Echo because of some skills
His like
he has, I guess.
disabilities and
He
before
still
he
has
was
both
like
hands,
injured.
but
Yeah.
maybe Echo switches to his right hand, or it's a clone of Echo. Maybe the Separatists got their own, or maybe the Echo they found was a clone
Or
of Echo.
I saw someone say, "What if it's Cody?"
Cody. I mean, that would, well, okay. Where we left Cody was that he went AWOL. That was the official Imperial
Right.
report in episode 2, in season 2. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like,
So
Cody
I don't
went
think he would
AWOL.
go back to. Well, unless he was captured on Tantus.
Yeah, not
and,
voluntarily.
Yeah.
He could be captured. Yeah, like Crosshair. I think
Mhm.
his entire struggle with his hand tremors and stuff is the brainwashing that they tried to put him under while he was in training for that exact program. So it could be literally any clone that we haven't seen.
That's another
die.
thing too about
So,
Crosshair's
cool.
like trauma. Like I would love to get like little flashbacks like of what's going on in his head, similar to how I was talking about Hunter, have like getting into his mind a little bit more to be able to understand his senses and his not his powers, but
Right.
what makes him unique. If like we could see his hand tremble and then like a little flashback of him like going through conditioning and maybe even that other clone that recognized him like there was a moment where they had together or something. There's just like
Right.
so much more that I still want to see, and there's a lot that's there for the taking as far
Right.
as content and story and things that we want to know. And we'll see if we like get to some of those things.
Yeah, that's my it's like, if I'm sure whatever they do, they're going to do it great. And so I have to temper my expectations of what I want to see, because what I wanted to see was a flashback episode with Asajj Ventress fighting the clone commandos from Republic Commando, including all of Delta Squad. Scorch, who gets many lines actually in this series. I need to point that out. Scorch is our boy. Uh, I was hoping to see like a flashback episode, and that's how Ventress would be brought into the Bad Batch, and that her story would have some lasting legacy, some impact. I don't know, maybe she had a baby and put it in a box, and now that baby, they need to take it to get trained by a Jedi Master. I don't know. I hope they don't need to do they don't need to do the Grogu storyline again. And this episode got me feeling again, like, I know I had this thought in season 1 of Bad Batch that it's kind of just the same story as The Mandalorian at this point. The more you circle around it, the less it's going to have its own identity. So I'm even all the more grateful they're ending it after 3 seasons.
Right. Yeah.
Even though the quality's been great, it's kind of, I don't know, I feel frustrated with myself because I don't know how to feel. I feel like I should be mad, but also I should really enjoy what's happening.
Yeah, I think what's been missing in these last couple episodes is maybe more of the Empire's stake in it all, and Hemlock, and all of that stuff is really driving so much more of the season. And I think kind of being separated from that makes it feel like boring or tedious. Like, yes, we heard Asajj saying like, you don't understand what the Empire is capable of, but we kind of have yet to really see the consequences of that yet.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
so
I
think that's coming. I think that's definitely coming.
Yeah. And in other media, we see what the Empire becomes and what it's capable of doing. But yeah, at this point in the series, it's still very like early post Clone Wars.
Yeah.
So there's still a lot of, and they've mentioned bringing Asajj Ventress back into future projects. So there's still multiple ways to do that, but like, at least,
Yes, and they have said on record that the book is not broken canon. Like,
right.
She says at the end of this episode, like, I have plenty more lives left, which as a cat girl, I was like, I relate.
Yeah.
But I am really excited that she's back and in this phase of her life where she's again just totally on her own. It seems like she doesn't have any of her Night Sisters or family or anything.
Right.
So, and I do hope that maybe it will lead into us going to Dathomir in Ahsoka and seeing that in real life, and
seeing Dathomir in live action in the Ahsoka
and maybe
show.
Angelina Jolie as Ventress.
Oh, okay, I could see it now. My brain is starting to open up to the possibilities and just be happy that we got our babe Ventress back.
Yes.
And with that, should we dive into the hot takes real
Let's
quick?
do it.
Don't be too proud of this podcast you've constructed. The ability to rank content is insignificant next to the power of an exceptional hot take.
It is hot takes time. And Amanda, if you don't have one off the bat, I do.
I do have one.
Let it rip.
Okay, so it's a little bit of a hot take, maybe it's also a little bit of a prediction, but now that we're kind of coming to like the end half of Bad Batch, thinking about the consequences and what I really want to see as far as the stakes elevated, I think / want them as in the Empire to blow up Pabu. I think that they might try to test some type of pre Death Star weapon And Pabu is just sort of like, it's just this nice target, honestly. It's just this big little island that you can just zap it out of existence. So it's kind of begging for it, if I'm being honest. But I could see that being a big consequence, and Asajj telling them, you're not really as safe here as you think you are, and thinking about Omega having to face that extreme amount of loss on her conscience. Seems like it could push her development as a character even further. So that's kind of my hot take / prediction.
Yeah, no, it made me think of the line that Omega's voice actor. Sorry, I'm forgetting her name.
Michelle Ang, I think.
Michelle Ang. Okay, she said that they basically had two roads to take for the season 3 story, and they took the darkest one possible.
Nice.
And I know that's exactly what she wants. So that's what Michelle Ang is saying is gonna happen.
Cool.
And if Pabu goes up in a litany of flames, I will be very sad. I really do want the best for these clones, like the little clones that they saved at the beginning of the season, and all the older clones, and everyone that existed on Pabu before as well. We definitely need some more of them. Like, Fee was the first time we've actually gotten voice lines from an actual Pabuan, right? Like,
I don't think is she from Pabu? I don't know if she's from Pabu,
maybe
but
not
no,
from Pabu, but that's where we met her.
No, actually, at the beginning of this last episode, it starts with Wrecker and Crosshair like coming off of a boat with someone.
Boat that Crosshair
yeah, which I was like, oh, look at them! They're like making friends with like the community and stuff.
I do love seeing Crosshair's learning to say you're welcome. That was a psychological thing I wanted to touch on in this episode with Crosshair. Is like, it's hard to say you're welcome when you're that like duty oriented. Where like, why would you expect to be thanked for helping? So like, I think Crosshair is just that wired for action and for doing things and for just
he's
like
changing.
being part of the solution. Yeah. That like he didn't even think to say you're welcome when she said thank you. He just goes, like an approving.
So it's as close to you're welcome as you can get.
As you should get, I guess. I don't know. I absolutely agree that would be completely devastating, but I do not want it to happen. I just no, like I understand that like if all of the Bad Batch if all 4 of them died, that would be the most emotional thing for Omega. I don't think she needs anything worse than that. I don't think she needs to lose Hunter and Wrecker and Crosshair and Tech, and I mean I guess Echo is still up in the air. He could live or die. But then all of her friends on Pabu, where she's lived the last 2 episodes pretty consecutively. Oh, no, I don't think they should do that. I think that would be too far. This is a kid's show, and you've taken this too far.
I got a bad feeling about this hot take.
Fair enough.
Okay. But...
All right, what do you got, Brian?
How do you go from Miriam to Willie? I think Temple of Doom is such a bad movie. Indiana Jones 5, I just saw it with my family the other day. I think Indiana Jones 5 is so much better than Temple of Doom.
Okay, you're going to have to walk me through this. So Temple of Doom is the one with Shia LaBeouf, right?
No, that's the 4th one, the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Crystal Skull.
And it's clearly better than that one. It's hard to get worse than that movie.
I've heard that, and I gotta say I have not seen the most recent one, but I've heard that they kind of like up, down, like each kind of sequentially is like a miss and then a hit, and then a miss and then a hit. So you're saying that this most recent one was good?
I think it's not great. It is.
Okay. I love Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
I don't know if I would even argue good, but like if you want to be insane and think that like just everything after 1985 sucks, like then go ahead. But like Temple of Doom was a bad movie with an unwatchable secondary character. Like Short Round is the only thing that makes that movie watchable or enjoyable. But at least Helena is somewhat enjoyable, somewhat tolerable in D5. Like people say like, oh, she's just this like, Daisy Ridley kind of Ray character, this Kathleen Kennedy projecting her own personality into whatever movie
Is that
she
his
produces.
daughter in the movie?
No, it's his friend's daughter. It's his
Oh.
goddaughter.
Oh, yeah, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, right?
Phoebe
She
Waller-Bridge plays her. And
not IG-11. Not K2SO.
oh,
L3.
L3 from
Yes.
there we go. That is a great connection that I was
There
not
we
even
go.
thinking about.
Yes, L3.
Yeah, Phoebe Waller-Bridge in Indiana Jones 5. People complain about her being the social justice warrior character, politics in my Indiana Jones. No, shut up. She's fine. She doesn't really even say anything like political. People are like, oh, well,
No
Indy
politics in
isn't-
Indiana Jones. He punches Nazis.
punches a lot of Nazis. This one there's a lot of Nazis in it too. And I think she's like, I don't know, maybe she's not like, maybe it's just because she's not a romantic lead for Indy that people don't like her. I don't get it. And I'm also trying to fix my camera at the same time. But I don't think she's a horrific, unwatchable character. Miriam was in Temple of Doom. And I don't know. Indiana Jones 5 does not suck nearly as bad as people want it to. And we need to bring it back before it dies off completely, because there's a lot of good stuff in it.
I
Why I muted your mic?
I don't know how to answer this because I am not qualified to provide a hot take.
Not as big an Indiana fan. Okay, that's fine. I guess we'll just go ahead and we'll just say that everyone agrees with me and I'm right always.
Okay, we'll give that to you. I'm feeling
Yeah.
gracious. But I guess since your camera is about kaput and we've
It's
gone
struggling.
through our hot takes. Oh, there's one other thing I wanted to share, which was that I did see some people online starting to ship Crosshair and Asajj, and their ship name would be Asshair.
Oh no.
It's kind of the best ship name ever.
I mean, Ventress
Or
I can't
cross
picture
stress.
her. cross dress or ass hair.
Cross stress.
Cross crevengeance, crevasse.
Yeah. Write in the
crevage?
comments which one you like more.
Oh boy, I think I hate both of them. No, okay, seeing Crosshair and Asajj Ventress together, I don't know. I
really can't see any of the clones
None of them are good enough for her.
being yeah. First of all, nobody's good enough for her except me.
Or me.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
but I just think of the clones as being almost like eunuchs, kind of like Ken dolls. Like they just aren't programmed in that way.
They just don't. Oh, not programmed in that way.
In that way.
There's actually some pretty strong evidence for that. A lot of people say that what's his name from the Clone Wars? The farmer guy with the Twi'lek wife and
Cut.
the two annoying kids. Cut. There we go. Cut
And
LaQuaine.
his big-chested wife.
And his lovely pink Twi'lek wife.
Yeah.
There's no way that he's biologically those children's father. Like, the timeline just does not shake out. So
Yeah.
it's still
Okay.
unconfirmed. Like, he's their adopted
But they
dad, and
do
that's
have like
enough,
pinup
but-
posters in their
okay,
locker
that's true.
rooms.
They
so
do spray paint Twi'leks on the side of their LAATs. So
exactly.
They do
So they do appreciate
Twi'leks.
yes.
At least maybe maybe some, I don't know, maybe some people in Star Wars are just genetically programmed to only be attracted to one species, and that Jango Fett was only attracted to Twi'leks, or his soulmate was a Twi'lek. Oh my god, we're getting into some
gotta start adding that
good
in
stuff.
Blob.
Layers and layers onto my fan fiction are just
Mhm.
piling on. So Jango Fett falls in love with a Twi'lek, and that's why every clone spray paint and pinup is a Twi'lek. And why Cut LaQuaine couldn't resist. He had no other choice but to settle
Wow.
down with the one random Twi'lek he found on some backwater planet
Wow.
in the middle of the Clone Wars. So
Man, I'd be so disappointed if I lived in a universe like Star Wars and I was only genetically disposed to liking one other species.
Dude, that'd be so
Boring.
Oh my gosh, having a type. Blech. No, not for me. I'm into the spiritual connection between people. That's what
Yes.
I'm all about. And that's what the Bad Batch is maybe getting towards in season 3. We'll see with Omega becoming force sensitive. I honestly really hope not. I honestly would love for Omega to never hold a lightsaber in her entire life. That's my goal for
Wow.
her. I don't think she needs it. She's got a bow and arrow and a little crossbow now, which is
Yeah.
freaking cool. And she should use them because they're better than lightsabers. Lightsabers are bad weapons.
Yeah, you got way more distance with a crossbow.
So much range, and
Yeah.
it looks cooler.
It does.
And you're not a narc. Jedis are narcs.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Well, any last thoughts about these? I know I actually wrote down quite a bit for these 2 episodes. Just little things I wanted to touch on. The pit droid with a little hat in the bar in episode 8.
That was cute.
It was so cute. I love droids wearing clothes. I think it is a great bit, and his little hat was just perfect. That was, I guess, my biggest little standout detail that I needed to touch on.
Yeah, so I guess in conclusion, bad territory. Brody's out this week, so he'll get us his rankings in hopefully by next week. But we gave bad territory. I gave it a 67.2, and you gave it a 64. And the Harbinger, I gave a 75.6, and you gave a 72.4. So we were
Wow.
pretty in lockstep there with each other. We'll have to see how Brody feels about it. I have a feeling he's probably going to want to tank them.
I feel like me and you are pretty close overall for almost every week, but that our reasons why are very different,
Yeah.
And that Brody is just so bored at this point.
Yeah.
No. He loves Star Wars, and I think he is enjoying most of these episodes, but I definitely just, like, as soon as I saw the 7th one, or the was it 8? Episode 8? Episode 8.
Mhm.
I just knew that that's the exact episode that he's just gonna hate.
Yeah.
It's like nothing happens. The characters are boring. They just repeating the same couple of lines of dialogue for the entire thing. So I don't know. I don't think they need a whole Fennec episode, but I think that if you bring Fennec and Asajj back again together at some point in the later end of the season, that maybe these episodes will feel a lot more weightier. But I don't know. My guess is for next week there's going to be at least one monster.
At least
one obligatory monster fight, because the team needs to learn to work together. But other than that, I don't know. I think there's still absolutely room for this show to tank and to suck and to be the worst thing that's ever happened to Star Wars. So we're looking.
But
forward to
I
that.
remain hopeful.
I'll hold on to hope. I have enjoyed almost every beat of this season so far. If I need to remind you all about the definition of filler, really what all filler was originally was when an anime surpassed the manga in the timeline, and the anime had to kind of tread water for a little bit while the manga caught up. And that those episodes were deemed filler because they were pointless, drove the story nowhere. They're pretty much just a cash grab. They're just to increase viewership. And especially if you see a show like Naruto, like, they have to retread the last episode for like 12 minutes before they even show anything new. That's what filler is, okay? Just because an episode doesn't move the plot forward in a significant way does not make it filler. And if it does, it can still be very enjoyable. It can still have lots of beautiful design, great new characters, incredible action pieces, a lot to offer. And I think the Bad Batch
You can have dynamic filler.
Yes, very dynamic filler and character building filler. Like, at least we've gotten that from every slower episode of this season, is that Crosshair is going through something and he's making progress little by little, and they're getting somewhere. I'm excited to see where we haven't even talked about the Acolyte. Oh my god. Oh man, there was so much to talk about this week, but that's the beauty of Star Wars. It never ends. There's always something new. Acolyte trailer just dropped this week, and I was definitely catching, like, maybe that was intentional because of, like, the Mortal Kombat, not the Mortal,
the kind of battling,
the hand-to-hand combat that they had. Like, that's gonna be a main focus of the Acolyte. So I wonder if maybe they time releases like this to Just have
I
some little bit of
did. I
extra
don't know.
flair.
I don't know if no, I don't think I mentioned this, but I did peek ahead at when the final episode comes out, which is May
May
1st.
1st.
And it's called, I believe it's called The Calgary Arrives. Cavalry Arrives.
The cavalry has
And
arrived. That's what they say in when they
right.
come.
And
Yes.
that date is 501
May Day. Wow.
or the
Whoa.
501st.
Whoa, wait a second. Wait. Whoa. Wait a second.
501.
501 May 1st, the
The
501st.
Calgary is here.
Captain Rex and his clone rebellion. Oh, okay. That made me so much more excited. I knew it was like the week of May the 4th, but I didn't know
Yeah.
it was 501. That's going to become a very cool day, thanks to you saying that here on this episode of Duel of the Ranks, Amanda.
Yes. And for our listeners, we have been exploring going to bi-weekly. So I think next week we will have another off week and we'll be catching up with getting our episodes back on streaming. Otherwise, if you want to catch up, you can check out our most recent episodes on YouTube under our live tab and get caught up with all of our previous Bad Batch episodes. And so next week we'll be off, but then we'll have 3 episodes to talk about the week after that. So
Wow.
that'll be probably a nice long episode. This one we talked for quite a bit about, and
I could keep going.
and these I know, and these were sort of like we said, filler episodes to
Right,
some
right.
degrees. So, and we still had plenty to talk about, and we're still leaving stuff on the table. And then we'll have to still tread backwards with and get Brody's take on some of them too.
So hopefully the rest of the season sucks so we can talk about these more. No,
Yeah.
it'll be great. I'm excited. Thank you so much for joining me, Amanda. And thank everyone for tuning in to this week's episode of Duel of the Ranks. Next week we'll catch you, in 2 weeks we'll catch you with episodes 10, 11, and 12. We're really getting into the final stretch here. So we'll catch you then. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one. Catch you on the flip.